Welcome back to Lift You Up Inspiring Health Stories. I'm your host, Tamika Bickham. I'm the founder and chief storyteller of TB Media Group, but for the purpose of this podcast, I am your health and happiness matchmaker. Now, before I introduce you to today's guest, I'm going to ask you to do, go ahead and subscribe on YouTube, turn on those notifications, and connect with me on LinkedIn, because I'd love to stay connected with you. Now, today you are going to meet John Frederick. He is a new author. He is a spiritual teacher, and he's also talking about how to overcome challenges and live a life of prosperity, not just in money, but an overall life of prosperity. He's gone through some health challenges that include drug and alcohol abuse, and HIV diagnosis, and stage 4 cancer. And he lives what he calls a beautiful and wonderful, fabulous life. Our physical, mental, and emotional health is not just a want, it is a need for happy lives and prosperous businesses. Lift You Up is the podcast where we share inspiring health stories from business owners who are fulfilling their purpose to live their healthiest lives and helping you do the same. From former TV reporter to marketing entrepreneur and content creator, I care about sharing stories that matter and stories that connect us. I'm your host, Tamika Bickham, your health and wellness matchmaker. Well, today I'm so excited to meet, calling all the way in from Paris, France, John Frederick. Hi, John. Thanks for being on the show.
Tamika, thank you for having me. I'm really honored to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you. I know you are an author, and what really stood out to me is you are also a spiritual teacher. So excited to learn more about you, what that means. And let's start by you telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
The start of this all really is back in childhood. And I was raised in a religion that I just didn't buy into. And I had a fairly normal middle-class family with our own dysfunctions. And I early on got hooked on drugs and alcohol, and I thought it was great and it was fun, and it was fun. And then everybody else went their own ways, and I just kept on doing it. And life slowly spiraled downhill over a period of a couple of decades, really. And then in my 30s, I really crashed and burned, and came out of the closet during that period very inelegantly. And, hit a real bottom. And I'd always been looking for something spiritual. I'd always been looking for the answers. And I tried to read a lot of philosophy and other things, but it's kind of hard when your brain is addled. And spoiler alert, I got sober. And I stopped through spiritual means, really. Through spiritual means, not from medicine, not from psychiatry, not from, because I'm a great guy and I'm really smart and intelligent and everything else. I was whipped good. And that really is the start. There are, and this is my theme, whatever the problem is, there are spiritual answers that augment, supplement, stand under. Substance means to stand under. Everything. They stand under all of life. And so if we're going to talk about bodily health and mental health, which I think that's where we're going to go, my piece of the puzzle is the spiritual understanding that the universe is good. I call it God, Allah, Buddha, whatever, Great Spirit, whatever you want names. It's got lots of names, but it's one energy. And when we learn how to use it, when we learn how to harness it, when we understand the laws that are operational all the time in every situation, we can start to harness them in the right direction. And so what I wanted to do, because I went from in that bottom, being homeless, fortunately not homeless on the street yet, but homeless nonetheless, and pretty broke and without work and fairly unemployable and bad health, to great health. I'm 64, I just turned 64, and living in Paris, France, which was always my dream, although I didn't even know it at the time, but there were clues. and writing this book, which I hadn't intended to write, but came about because I wanted to give this to other people. I want other people to have the fabulous, wonderful life and experience that I have, the fabulous health, and most importantly, I think, peace of mind.
You mentioned that you were looking for answers, and that's what kind of sent you on this spiritual journey. Was it that you kind of hit rock bottom, you would say, from the drugs and alcohol that you mentioned, or what was it that got you to that point where you were looking for answers?
Oh, my drug and alcohol use was searching for answers, searching for something else, something more. I knew there was something bigger. I knew this wasn't all there was. Very young age, I had a summer job as a dishwasher in a hotel, and I would go stand out back when they would send me to throw the garbage out, and I would look at the sunset and the beautiful Venus evening star and the moon and the beautiful color, the cerulean blue that speaks to my heart. And I just knew there was something more, but I couldn't tap into it. I didn't know how to start that. So hitting bottom actually is almost always, not always, but almost always a prerequisite.
It's interesting because a lot of people on this show mention that searching for more, or maybe searching for their purpose. We talk a lot about that, actually, and there's kind of a shift, and it could either be some kind of tragic event that has happened to people, a loss. Sometimes it's just burnt out from working in the kind of day-to-day grind, but a variety of things. But I hear that a lot. And for you, when you say looking for answers or feeling like there was something more, is that in all areas of life, or was that specifically, like you mentioned, work? Or
so it was about everything. It was about career, it was work, it was money, it was relationships, it was health, it was the higher callings of the universe. And so the pain, what some people call God, G-O-D, gift of desperation. The gift of desperation that nothing I've done is working. All my strategies, all my plans and schemes, all my best thinking has put me in this hole. And, help, asking for help is really the turning point when I surrender and ask for help. And then I began, people and institutions and situations started appearing in my life that brought me in the right direction. And I don't think it was random. I think it was my eagerness to get out of pain, get out of the misery, get out of the hole, and also that I had been seeking all along.
And I mean, I think we go through that at different stages of life, but I'm feeling like stuck and feeling like, hey, I can't find the answer to this thing. Like I'm looking, like I know there's something there, but I don't know what it is. And then all of a sudden, the answers start kind of just presenting themselves to me. That's what happened to me, at least. And I was just like, I think you have to be in a certain mindset to allow that in. But I don't want to take it from you. This is more your area. But I felt like it was very impressive to me. It very much so wowed me to feel like, wow, like I just really needed to kind of focus on this a little bit and feel like, hey, this will work out. And all of a sudden, all the answers that I was looking for presented themselves to me. So I definitely want to come back to the metaphysics and what you were going through at that point when you're like, hey, I'm looking for more. You feel like things start being presenting themselves to you. You mentioned health as well, which I also want to touch on, because I'm wondering at what point in all of this journey that it's like you're having this kind of spiritual journey, but then, I read in your bio some of the other health challenges you faced. Was that all kind of happening at the same time? I know you had a cancer diagnosis.
Well, yeah, that's later. That's sort of like the cherry on the sundae to show me the cancer diagnosis was in 2016, to kind of show me that all the stuff that I had been working on and talking about and teaching and practicing wasn't BS. It actually works. I'm like, why do I need this cancer diagnosis? Haven't I had enough? And
Right.
it was like, no, you need to really manifest health in a very serious situation. It was stage 4 lymphoma.
Wow.
To show to myself and hopefully to other people, hey, I survived it. Not only did I survive it, I thrived through it, and you can too. And here's how. Chronic drug and alcohol use and cigarette smoking really puts a hurting on your body over time. And on top of that, having come out of the closet and in the late 80s, early 90s, and being pretty wanton and very careless, I contracted HIV and diagnosed in 1996. I'd already been sick for quite a while at that point. But I had this spiritual underpinning that was just starting, but it was powerful. And so instead of panicking, instead of falling apart, instead of going back to the drugs and alcohol in despair, the thought came to me that wasn't a John thought, which was, what do you do now? What do you do next? Well, the next thing was to get a doctor. So I got an allopathic, Western medicine doctor. He took me to a retreat in New Jersey. And this retreat was for people with HIV/AIDS. And I thought it was going to be all about how to handle social services, how to handle doctors and insurance forms, and practical, right? Well, it was practical, but it was none of that. It was all spiritual healing. And we did a healing ceremony, a grieving ceremony for people we had lost that just wrenched the tears right up out of you. And we did mask making, and we had a presenter, this man named John Calvi, who's a released Quaker. John lives in a shack in a hut in Vermont in the woods without any electricity. And he's a Quaker, and he's been released from his congregation to go do work in the world. And he works with two groups of people. He works with people who have been tortured, torture victims, and people with HIV/AIDS in their healing journey. And John was our first presenter. And I went to that retreat for many years after, and ended up becoming part of the staff on the retreat, but that's another story. So I went to this retreat, and then I went to another fellowship spiritual thing out on the tip of Cape Cod in Provincetown. And I went with a friend who was also HIV positive. And at the time, I knew I needed to start medications. And what you hear from people about these medications, same thing you hear from people about the chemotherapy drugs. It's poison. It's worse than the disease. The side effects are horrible. Oh, you lose weight, you lose your hair. You just hear all these horror stories. And guess what? For many, many, many people, those are true. And I was scared. I was really scared to start taking the HIV drugs. And I was whining on about it in the back of the car on the way back from Provincetown. And my friend is a big queen. I'll just be straight up about it. And he had enough. Oh, shut up, Mary, he said. I'm taking, and he named the 3 drugs that he was taking: Epivir, Xerit, and Crixivan. He says, I'm taking these 3 drugs. They're working great. And at that moment, in the backseat of his car, there's a line in the Bible: the peace that passes all understanding. You can't explain it. It came over me in that instant. And there was no question in my mind that that's exactly what I was going to take. And it was going to be fine. And I was going to be fine. And I went to my doctor the next week. I said, I'm taking Epivir, Xerit, and Crixivan. Write the script. Have a nice day. And I've been taking an HIV med. That's 6. And they're not toxic to me because I had this thing going on where I took these pills and I denied that all those stories I heard. Mm-hmm. And I said, these things are going to work 1,000 times better than normal without any side effects whatsoever. Thank you, God. And I'd pop them. And that's my story. I believe we talk ourselves into illness and healing. I think we talk ourselves into side effects. I walk a very fine line between what I'm saying and blaming the victim. To me, that's what I call spiritual malpractice. You don't say to people, oh, well, you wouldn't have those side effects if you just thought correctly. That's really dangerous and very inappropriate. What I'm saying, this is how I processed and perceived and manifested a journey of healing that was quite powerful medically and quite powerful spiritually at the same time. I took those things out of the law. These are not toxic. These are life-giving. And believing that wholeheartedly, that's true.
You mentioned at that point, have this spiritual underpinning, I think is the word that you used. How does this all lead to you becoming a spiritual teacher?
I wish I knew.
And sometimes it's like, I don't know, right? But and I guess what does that mean to be a spiritual teacher?
I wish I knew. I'm a big follower and reader, and I facilitate. I don't teach. I facilitate a group of another spiritual path called the Course in Miracles, and that book came to me in 1990, and I didn't know what to do with it. It's an extremely thick book. That's the Course in Miracles. Mm-hmm. It was scribed, not written by a agnostic Jewish clinical psychiatrist named Helen Schuckman in the 70s at Columbia University. And it has lots in there, lots and lots in there. It's a thick book. But one of the things it says is to have peace, teach peace to learn it. The way to learn something is to teach it. And so from that mindset, I want prosperity and abundance. I want good health. I want joy. I want a wealth of friends. I want to live in Paris. I have a lot of things on my bucket list, some of which I've accomplished and some of which are, they're being prepared for me. So I became a spiritual teacher because I needed to learn these things. And the best I can understand is watching the other people who are a little farther down the path from me, learning from them and asking them questions, and going back to that early thing that I said was so important, asking for help. Asking for help. I don't know how to do this. I'm confused. I have what I call my spiritual board of directors. And most of them are on this planet, but some of them are in other realms. And they are there for me. They are there. They have my best interests at heart, and they guide me, and they help me in my dilemmas. Because as much as I've learned and as much as I've grown, I have dilemmas, sometimes big ones, and they're the ones that confuse me, and they're the ones that I can't see the answer. For you, you can tell me your stuff, and I can help guide you, but it's not mine. That's why it's so much easier. I need that as well. So I wrote this book. It wasn't planned. Prosperity Now, 12-week journey to the life of your dreams. Lovely cover. Mm-hmm. Because a friend of mine, who you may know, Vanessa, asked me to give her some ideas about how I was living this wonderful, fabulous life. And so I started writing and working and reading, and we talked, and it grew and grew and grew. I brought it back to the States, to the spiritual community that I'm a part of, the Unity movement. And at the Unity Church, many of them are churches, many of them are spiritual centers, and offered it as a course. And so we were going through this 12-week course that kind of sprung up and out of this conversation with our friend. And then people said, this needs to be a book. And there happened to be somebody there who had written a book and had it edited and published. And so she connected me to her editors, and that's what resulted out of this, is the Prosperity Now book, which is available on Amazon, and some bookstores have it. Basically, what I wanted to do, which was to bottle the wonderful stuff that I use in my life and on a daily basis and give it to people. And I don't charge anything. I don't charge for my groups. I don't charge for the books. The book costs money, but I don't charge to spend time with people on Zoom, either one-on-one or in a group, because I want people to have this. It's too precious to be sold.
So tell us some of the highlights then about how tell us one about the wonderful, fabulous life you're living, and two, some of those highlights that led you to living the wonderful, fabulous life that you're living.
Well, this putting the plug in the jug was really the beginning of that. I've been searching for a while. Part of this book is, and I got permission from the program to do it, is using the 12 steps of recovery. Many people are familiar with those. Even if you're not in that realm, you've heard of it. AA, Al-Anon, ACOA, Narcotics Anonymous, there's many A's. And the first step is surrender. And the second step is coming to some kind of understanding that there's greater forces out there that have our best interests at heart. And then really the rest of the life journey is turning everything over to that force. At that time, I wasn't looking for a church. I wasn't looking to go to any kind of spiritual community, but a friend of mine kept kind of just gently saying, you might like to go, you might like to go. And so one Sunday we went to the service just before Easter, and I never left. I went ever since. I'm a strong member of that community. I've been on the board, was on the board for 8 years. Right around that time, a friend of mine, one of my dearest friends who is on my spiritual board of directors, even though she's passed away, I was sitting in her office one day. She said, I got to go see Tony. I need a tune-up. I thought she was talking about her car. I said, what's wrong with your car? Oh, he's not my mechanic. He's my therapist. I've seen him for years, but now I just go when I need a tune-up. Something, not John, said, give me his number. I got his number. I went to see him. This is the best therapist on the planet, bar none. And he works with angels, and he works with the little kids inside that are all messing around, trying to take control of the wheel of the bus. And he gets it. He hones right in on the truth. He hones right in on the core of the issue. And I've seen him. This is 96, and I still see him. I call him every 2 weeks. We have a phone therapy session still. So I found this spiritual community. I found this marvelously spiritually connected psychotherapist. And then I got the HIV diagnosis. So all these things that were in place at that time. So I didn't panic. I didn't fall apart. I said, what's next? And I got the doctor. And then I talked to this guy, and he said, come with me on this spiritual retreat. And I went on the spiritual retreat and the other retreat. There's a massage school in our community, and one of my friends taught there, and she says, come talk to my pathology class about HIV/AIDS. And so I would go there and give this 40-minute shtick about my spiritual journey and spiritual healing. And the modality of massage is really about conversation with the masseuse and the patient, the client, on the table, and where there's blocked energy, where there's tightness, where there's resistance, and helping to free that, helping to loosen that, helping to move fluids. Acupuncture, I've used that extensively, especially when I had the cancer in 2016. Chiropractic care, amazing. I had the worst back in the world when I was 30. I was falling apart. I couldn't walk when my sciatica would flare up. I haven't had that in decades. And on and on and on. You know, the resources are there when you're ready. Mm-hmm. But most people, sad to say, aren't ready. They want to be ready, maybe they think they're ready, but I'm telling you, pain is a touchstone of spiritual awakening.
So when you say spiritual awakening, because somebody may hear this and say, okay, I've heard spiritual community, psychotherapist, and a spiritual retreat, and but what does that really look and feel like? Because someone may say, hey, I have a therapist, hey, I go to church and that's my spiritual community, and they might say, hey, I'm not living this wonderful, fabulous life.
That is the answer. There's the answer. You just put the answer into the question. Is it working? I have a prayer life and I do it, and then I'll be doing it and I'll realize it's not working anymore. It's stale. It's old. It's become habit and rote, and I got to shake it up. And see, here's the thing, and this is a lot of what I teach in the Prosperity Now. We can do it consciously or unconsciously. And if we do it unconsciously, eventually the universe will say, wake up, and it'll send the HIV. That's what happened. It wasn't, none of this stuff came to hurt me. It all came to wake me up. So, I used this analogy just the other day. I'm not a woodworker, but when you're working on a table and you're got your planks there and your wood, and you run your hand along it and you get a splinter, that's where you need to sand. That's the rough spot that needs to be smoothed out. That's all these things are. This is saying this is the rough spot that needs to be smoothed out, John. Do something, fix it, move, leave the job.
So every time you feel like you've been woken up by something, what do you feel as though has been the message or the outcome of that? What did you smooth out?
Well, two, three, four parts to that. I don't consider that I smooth it out. I allow the universe, God, the energy to smooth it out. What I do is stop resisting. And once that happens, the tragedy, the bad news turns sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly into a blessing. The HIV, I keep going back to that because it is so impactful and powerful. All right, what do I need to do? I need to get a doctor, got the doctor. I need to go on these spiritual retreats. I need to not die. Whoa, because I got 42 T cells and my viral load is through the roof. I need to start taking the meds. I'm scared to take the meds. Well, there's a spiritual solution here. I'm searching for it. And then the answer comes and this peace comes over me and I'm dead certain this is going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. It's going to be great. There used to be these vultures because they thought you were dying. They would buy your life insurance policy and pay you 60%, 70%, 70 cents on the dollar, whatever, because they thought you're going to live 6 more months and then they could collect a windfall. So I sold a life insurance policy. They still send me cards. I'm telling you, this is 25 years later. They still send me cards. How you doing? Smiley face.
Oh,
I'm good.
Gosh.
Thanks. Bad investment on this one anyway. Part of my journey in Prosperity Now is learning to see it right. And learning to see it right, there's a line in the Bible that says, a couple of places, don't judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment. So the appearance is, this is awful. This is a tragedy. The right judgment, in my understanding and what works for me, this is what works for me. Okay, why are you here to teach me? What are you here to teach me? This guy that took me to the retreat asked me that, really harsh. Boy, I did not want to hear that. Why did you ask this virus into your life? Why did you call this to your soul, to yourself? What's going on? What's the death wish? And I know I was a victim, playing that small little violin. It's not my fault, but he said it in a way that I was receptive to hear it. So I woke up and I heard, no, you're not a victim of this. And so now I get to see it right. And when I see it right, through eyes of faith, I haven't even used that word yet. This is really what I'm talking about is faith in the goodness of God, in the goodness of the universe, in the power of spiritual forces that are here, ready, willing, and able to help us once we're asking for help and pointing ourselves in the right direction. Once we stop digging in that hole, and then all of a sudden the problem becomes it's an old cliche, the stumbling block becomes a stepping stone up to a higher level. It's a sublime journey. I would say to anybody who's struggling, who's having difficulty in any area of their life, stop and just breathe, just pause, just sit there and go really in and get rid of all these preconceptions and ideas and the churning mind. The churning mind is never going to give us an answer. And in there's an intuition, a little voice, it never shouts, and it will tell you what's the next step to do. It won't tell you the whole thing. It'll just tell you what's next to do. Go do the dishes, which I had to do before I got on here. Make that phone call. Call that person and apologize. So whatever that intuition is telling you, do it. Do it right then and there.
John, I'd like to leave this on a health tip, health or wellness, that usually I ask for one that is something that actionable, that people could implement in their lives right now.
That's a tough one. Because a lot of what I'm talking about may seem so esoteric, but it's really practical. Do your best to get out of that churning mind, put on some meditative music, sit quietly, get in a warm bath, sink in, chill, and listen for the answer. It's there. It's going to say something's going to come out of this. And you can do it in any number of ways. I work with a guy, Robert Moss, who's a dream teacher, and he's got lots of ways to awaken this mind. One is, he calls it bibliomancy. Just go to a book, open the book, pick a number of the page and number of the line, and go to any random book and page 34, line 15, and there's your answer. You can do that. There's lots of ways to do it. And then the important thing, and he teaches this with his dream work. I do a lot of dream work. You have to honor the dream. If you hear that voice say, call mom. If you hear that voice say, go to the doctor. If you hear that voice say, go buy vegetables instead of French fries, you have to honor it. You have to honor it, because it will stop talking to you. It won't stop talking to you, but the channel will be harder. You have to honor the dream. You have to honor the guidance, and then it will get easier. And then the voice will be clearer, and the path will open up. And this is a wonderful way of life. I can't wait to see what's next.
I love that. Honor the dream. I will definitely make a note of that. And lastly, tell everyone one more time the name of the book, where we can find it, and also where we can find you, connect with you, and learn more about you as well.
Prosperity Now, a 12-week journey to the life of your dreams, is on Amazon in softcover and Kindle. And in certain bookstores, or go to your local bookstore, I believe in independent local bookstores, and ask for it. My website, it's a little long, but maybe you can put it in the blog stuff, prosperitynowlifeofdreams.com. And there's some of my talks on there. I'm not the best marketer, I will confess. I'm not the best marketer of my stuff. But the website, I bought a computer so I could edit it a little better. prosperitynowlifeofdreams.com.
Awesome. We'll make sure to link to that below in the show notes. Any social media for you?
I've got a YouTube channel. There's not much on there.
Okay.
Someday.
Exactly. Someday.
Yeah.
Well, John, this has been truly great. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, being so open about your experiences as well. and sharing some valuable knowledge on how we can all stop resisting and honor the dream.
Tamika, thank you for having me. I hope I helped somebody. I know I got a lot out of it, just being honored to be here. So thanks again.
Thank
from
you.
Paris, France.
Make sure you go below, find John's website below to learn more about him, his journey, and his 12 steps to prosperity, as well as where you can find the book. So that's all below in the show notes. Connect with him. Connect with me if you haven't already. I'm all the places, but I'd really love if you connect with me on LinkedIn and YouTube. I'd hate for you to miss out because we come back with new episodes each and every week. So until I see you back next week, because I know I'll see you then, stay happy, stay healthy.